Hello everyone, welcome to the final episode of the year and of the season. Thank you so much for listening in, checking us out, letting me and Jago attempt at being podcasters. Not very good at it, but we're getting there. Thank you so much, I really appreciate the support. This episode we have Otto, multi-instrumentalist, music producer, and they also work in events as well. Really happy with this conversation. Otto is an absolute gem. They're so sweet. So really grateful for the conversation around music. And yeah, we're just sort of trying as many different creative avenues that we can and seeing who's up for a chat. And it's been really good, and we're really proud of what we've done this year. So thank you to everyone for listening and giving us your time. In other news, on the 19th, we have an event at Basement 45. We've got tickets in the description of this and also in the bio of the Instagram. We'll be putting up a little advert for it as well. Where we'll have Osso playing, headlining, and Lubok absolutely throwing down some heat. So it'll be great for you to come along and check us out and support us for our sort of launch event. Hopefully see you there. In the meantime, enjoy this, and we'll see you in the new year. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hello guys, welcome back to, what was it, episode 5 now?
Episode 5
of the Artifex podcast. Today we are joined by the wonderful Otto Cox. Hello Otto.
Hey guys, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
No worries, thank you for having us. That's the wrong way around.
Yeah,
Hey,
no.
how's today been? What have you been up to today? Anything exciting?
I had a lovely cycle across town to get here to the studio.
Fabulous.
Thank you. It is a studio.
Just having a nice day.
Yeah.
Decided to have a chat.
Yeah,
Perfect.
nice one.
Wonderful stuff. Right, where should we begin?
So I guess maybe a little bit of background about yourself, give a bit of context to our listeners and viewers about who you are, what you do, and where you're from.
Sure. So, I mean, at the moment, I'm a session musician, and I guess I run some dance events in Bristol.
Nice.
And those are the two things I mostly do. And I've been a producer of electronic music for about 6 or 7 years. Just mostly working in Ableton, and then more recently, in the last 50 years, I've started releasing some music as well.
Yeah, cool.
Just under my own name.
Yeah.
Well, not my only name.
Yeah, but
the alias.
Yes. Yeah.
I've been releasing.
Yeah.
Cool. And just gigging around Bristol and stuff, and trying to create some different sorts of dance music events in the city.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. So whereabouts are you from, like, in the UK also?
So I'm from a small village on the outskirts of Oxford called Kirkland.
Very nice. Village gang. That's
All
what
British guys. We do pick our guests well.
we pick up guests very often.
Exactly.
I think it is. It's countryside only. So I haven't had anyone from London yet.
Subconsciously, I think it's all Grace is
No, she's not. She's around the area.
still countryside.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Country vibes, mate.
So, I've known you for a decent amount of time, I'd say. I mean, like,
Actually, start playing with John. I mean, that must have been like
year ago.
Yeah, maybe.
So we played a bit of music together, and when I first met you, I was like, yeah, Christ, you can play. That's definitely certified. In terms of like your sort of, you have, what I was impressed by, you had a really good musical vocabulary. It was very multi-genre. Where does that sort of come from? You're saying session musician, that means you pretty much hop on most things. And it seems like, the music I was listening to for the EP that you released has a lot of multi-genre, elements. Like you jump from a garage beat to a house beat to different sort of things.
Yeah.
Where's the love for that, and what's the creative sort of idea behind it?
Sure. So I grew up listening to a lot of like classic rock, jazz, and funk, basically. And got into bass playing at a really young age through my dad, who was in a punk band. inherited his bass.
Yes.
Like, he handed it to me, and there were like doves flying behind him and rays of light. So I had a couple of years of bass lessons, and at the same time was also taking some jazz piano lessons while I was still at school, and eventually decided I wanted to go to university and do music there. But also at the same time I was really into I was really into psychology, and I was really into priming specifically. I was doing some research in that area, and wanted to go to university to study psychology and music as a joint degree.
Right.
And there's only a few places where you can do that, and one of them was Bristol.
Yeah, is it?
And I went there and did the jazz course that they do there. Joined with their psychology course.
How'd you find that?
It was in many ways really rewarding. Right, the teaching was really great.
Yeah.
For both halves of the course actually. But the psychology course was one of the most subscribed courses at the university, and whereas the music course was one of the least. So in terms of the amount of sort of contact you got with lecturers, there was a huge disparity there. And so and the courses were taught quite separately.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was only in my own time really that I was kind of linking the two and getting into music therapy and ideas around the psychology of music.
That's really interesting.
So that was I mean, to be honest, when I was at university, most of my time was spent doing music.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
Working on my own production, and getting into the Bristol nightlife scene. I was out of Bristol a lot, getting into club music really around that kind of time. Had a lot of formative late teenhood experiences in clubs around Bristol, and gradually just about to kind of appreciation for the different facets of the dance music scene here, and the history of where it's come from in Bristol as a city. And so then coming to April 2022, I've been working on some tunes of my own for a while, trying to kind of fuse the jazz education that I'd had with the electronic textures that I was being exposed to in this new part of the world, part of the country where I was living then. And so that EP to me sounds like the culmination of kind of, I was at the end of my I don't know, I was turning 21 when I released it.
Adolescence almost.
So adolescence was over, and it was kind of the things that bubbled to the surface of my musical taste as an adolescent, combined with the jazz education that I'd had, and then this new influence of dance music. So it was very sound design focused, and it's a lot of the tunes that are playable on a big sound system and work in the club, but I was trying to bridge that gap and have it be something you can just listen to on headphones.
Yes, for sure.
They're quite tactile, and has a detail to it, but also enough kind of momentum and heft to work in club as well.
Yeah.
And it was just my first attempt at that kind of idea, basically.
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating because, I was going to ask you, obviously, so you're a multi-instrumentalist, you do your own producing, like you said, on labels and things like this. It's like those educations of both a more formal taught education, with jazz, and then going to university, but then also the lived education of going into clubs and stuff. Those, it sounds like they've combined and influenced each other in a very symbiotic way,
for sure.
It's very much created life something new, which is awesome. And also, guys, we're going to put Otto's EP in the description. It's amazing. Give it a listen.
Yep.
Just listen to it this morning. It's just I was just hearing it. I was like, "What the hell?" What the hell? In the best way possible.
Yes. Yeah.
It's such a fresh sound. And it's like Henry said, bringing all these different aspects of different genres together, creating something fucking awesome.
Yeah. So it really reminds me of Square Pusher.
Oh wow!
Because Square Pusher cites the same sort of thing. Because he plays bass on a lot of his EDM tracks, and then he splices and does that sort of IDM sort of sound. I don't really like IDM as an expression, but he says what he was finding was, in terms of he was a session musician, bassist, and was I really like jazz, but just the boundaries and how far you can go with it is like not necessarily limited. I guess music's limitless, but in the sense that like your instrument can only go so far, and the electronic element, and back then it was a lot of like analog, old drum machines and that sort of thing. Exactly. Yeah. It was like this huge playground to like take, the finite textures of music and then blow them up into something completely crazy.
Yeah.
So it really
was a huge pioneer.
Yeah. That really reminds me of that, actually. Come to think of it.
Thanks, yeah. Well, there is a lot of live bass playing on the EP, actually.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, a lot of keyboard parts which I play myself, and occasional bits of guitar which are usually quite varied. But yeah, I mean, bass being my primary instrument, I can, most of my musical thinking happens in that kind of bottom up way.
Yeah, for sure.
And always in the club. That's one of the ideas, which is like, obviously a lot of club music is very like bass centric. Yeah, bass music is a big thing. But for me, from the musical background that I've come from, listening in that kind of sandwiched way where you're thinking about, first of all the relationship between the bass and the drums, and then building up harmonic layers on top of that. Yeah. That kind of thinking, I think, permeates all of the listening that I do. And in the context of club music, you arrive at some really unusual places where people who have produced music specifically for the club. This is painting with broad strokes here, but like there are just a lot of really kind of unusual junctures of sampling and harmony and sound design made by people who don't come from like a background of music education, and so make choices that someone who did have a musical education could never make.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And and the sorts of, I don't know, it's occasional moments where you're in the club and you think, oh wow, like, this song does that right there, like that's crazy. Like what did someone mean?
Yeah.
And maybe they just meant like, oh, this sounds really good to me right now. I'm messing around with a bit of hardware in the door that I'm doing, and that's just the choice that they made. But if you kind of, I don't know, it's just interesting to me to like analyze the landscape that we arrived to now, where it's like there are producers coming at that setting from both sides.
Yeah.
And so that really interests me at the moment.
That's pretty amazing. Like when you're just like hearing something like people like different experiences to you entirely, but you can both like connect so much. Like what like just sounds great and what feels great, and like especially like you said, like at a club night, like that feeling is like so eminent, like flowing through everyone is amazing.
100%. I would. That's a really good point, and I think what I love about club music, like I, have a very sort of like post-punk, alt rock sort of background in terms of like my bass playing, and that's always just sort of simmered. But Bristol for me enabled like just seeing the history, as you touched on, the history of sound system culture here, and seeing how unifying it's been, whether it's been used in a protest, it's been in like St. Paul's, like all those different elements. They always get people moving and connected over like that one thing. And I think it's a really interesting point, because you've got, now the accessibility of music is so easy, to the point you can download a DAW, you can crack in a few samples from Splice or whatever you use, and you can start making tracks. And there's obviously, I think you can see the difference between the people that have that sort of musical background. But I think that point you were touching on a bit is like the idea that even if you don't, there's stuff that they're doing that, because they haven't had that structure necessarily, is adding an element which is completely unique. And that universal, like, complete accessibility, I think that's fascinating. Like, we're in quite a lucky time.
Exactly. And it's definitely like a feature of what that landscape is like now.
Yeah, I think it's very much a modern thing, for sure.
Yeah, I think people will look back on this time and just be amazed at like how much change there's been in the last decade.
Yeah, it's absolutely rapid, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've got a question where, so obviously you're as we've gone over probably 2 or 3 hours now, you're a session musician, but you also do producing and things. Let's try and get these words out. Going from instruments to, say, working on a computer, like is the approach different when you're like actually having like the tactile feeling of actually playing the music and like feeling it there, compared to like, you know, like I don't know music, so this is probably a gross understatement, but like drag and dropping like things together and like creating that sound.
Sure. I mean, I guess a lot of my, or well, in recent years, my practice has become much more to do with bridging that gap and making music in a more tactile way. And I think that usually translates to the finished product, right? So working with pieces of hardware, working with synthesizers and sampling techniques. A lot of the forthcoming tracks that I have are much more synthesis focused and sampling focused.
Yeah, cool.
Compared to the approach on that debut EP, which was much more of a kind of, it was certainly, I mean, it was like collaging my own playing, with like found sounds, field recordings, and so yeah, just I don't know, collage and pastiche feels more like what I was doing around that time. Really inspired at the time by artists like Drum, DJ Rum, and Lone as well. You know, that sort of sound for me was really influential at the time. And still is in a lot of ways, but certainly the influence of hardware and kind of trying to get out of the door,
yeah,
I think is really important, and that's what I always enjoy about you know, getting booked for a studio session or playing a show. I just last week was playing a show at Dare Shack with Dr. Porter, where I was playing live bass and then also playing synth bass.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, different songs had bits of both. And there were kind of, you know, atmospheric sections where I was using effects to kind of create soundscapes and blending with a live drummer. So we had a live drummer. Wow. We were all playing to a click. And then John's on vocals and I'm doing bass and synths. And that was a really great experience to be working in that kind of context.
Yeah.
Using the sort of sound design part of my brain along with the kind of with the like group think music part of my brain, right? So a lot of what I studied at university was about how you set up collaborative musical spaces, right? Like what is the space that you enter, like not physically, but like the space that you enter when you're working with other musicians on a shared like musical idea, and sometimes that's spontaneous and improvisational, and other times it's more pre-planned. But the kind of like that aspect of music psychology is what fascinates me the most. Is like how like a convergence of minds can
they come together and stick single entity.
Yeah, exactly. So that show with Tom was really interesting in that way, actually, and definitely allowed me to kind of explore a lot more of that side of my musicianship.
No, definitely really interesting.
Yeah, I should have been there.
Yeah, it was very fun. Yeah, and then like live visuals as well.
Oh, we did
doing projection mapping and things.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Oh, amazing. Yeah, do you think in terms of that live element, because you know when I met you, I only knew you for the sort of bass playing, the sort of session musician stuff. You know, in terms of like your EDM sort of journey, if you can call it that, the EDM journey. You know, like, what's the timeline with that? When did you start, you know, pushing, maybe playing more gigs and DJing or mixing? And maybe we could touch on a bit about, you know, the events you put on as well.
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I've actually been also, you know, listening to electronic music from a very young age.
Yeah,
I grew up, you know, in the kind of YouTube era of like electro and like EDM, where, you know, like Monster Cat and fucking, you know, all that kind of shit was got floating around on the internet, and so I was into it back then, but kind of not fell out of love with it, but I just sort of ebbed and flowed away from it towards live music and jazz, and then I've only just now kind of come back around to it really in the last few years, and so since spending time in Bristol, my focus has really been on like trying to refine my sound with my own production, and with that, you know, it's the back and forth between, you know, creating music in a room on your own and then experiencing music in a club with loads of other people, or even just like sitting around listening to music with friends, or at a house party, or or out and about at an event, right? So some of the events which I run are, I mean, in some ways, I often describe them as site-specific dance events, but really they're also, in a way, kind of group meditations. I think of them as on I don't know, veiled in the garb of a free party or a kind of outdoor art installation. But a lot of what it's really about for me with those experiences is really connecting with people through music and working really hard to create an arc across a night of different DJs who then weave kind of a story together. I mean, I'm sure that obviously is a thing that people like to think about with any club night, put on or any kind of or any gig. But with those events, it really feels like very integral to why they're successful and what people like about that kind of setting, right? Like being out in nature with a really nice sound system, a really unusual visual setup like a custom lighting rig or some strange other set design that kind of comes together to create a much more unusual and memorable experience than just kind of listening to a piece of music in a club.
100%.
Just in a dark room, so
I think that, sorry to interrupt, I think that translates to pretty much most, creative, quote unquote exhibitions. I think when it really you feel that art and you're really experiencing it is when you have, let's say, an exhibition, a gallery, a show, drama performance, whatever it is, and it just has an edge to it that you haven't seen before. You're feeling like you're a part of something way bigger than it actually is. And I think that is like the edge. I think, the clubbing scene is at a very big sort of junction right now, in my opinion. I feel like you've got a lot of class, like, Moles, we talked about Moles before, in Bath that's shutting down, which is what an amazing,
devastating.
Yes,
absolute institution.
Yeah, and it's like the artists that they put on in the early days, millionaires, they could 100% support them, throw some money out there. But it's like there's this huge gap, and I feel like it's almost like clubs have become almost like a Mackey's, a sort of fast food chain where you got your Prism, those sort of which are fine in their own retrospect, but like they're there to sell money to survive, and to sell money, sell drinks. If they're selling money,
no wonder that business model is
But you know what I mean. I feel like the best events I've been to so far in Bristol are the ones that felt like you're in a different world.
They're unique, they're distinct. Like it's like you say, like site specific. Like that's something we talk about like quite a lot of theatres. Like obviously the piece you're putting on matters so much, but like the venue in which you're doing it and the way it's being set can completely enhance and alter the entire interpretation and perception of what you're you're watching or experiencing. And I think with music that's even more prominent because music has this feeling. I mean, dialogue can do this, but I feel like music has this ephemeral feeling of just immediately transporting you and making you feel an emotion and feel a sensation, right? And I think what you're saying about like your site-specific stuff, like the stuff you've done in the woods, like that sounds like this almost like Eden-esque utopian like feeling. Like I didn't go to it, but like I can imagine like going there and just literally feel like I'm, going back to base.
It's about taking you out of the shape of the kind of the music environment that you're normally in. And I don't know, bringing to the forefront like the people who you're there with and connecting with whoever is like curating a set for you, connecting with other people who you're there with. And also like for us, a huge part of it is about breaking down the barriers between like promoter or organizer and audience member. And we really love or think things that I've really loved about doing those. It's like I run them with my housemates and great long-time friends who have been in a similar position of like a real enthusiasm about this idea for a long time, which is like trusting in in the autonomy and the wisdom of the crowd that you've assembled, to kind of self-govern and sort of look out for itself and be a kind of entity that is really cohesive, but also,
well, I guess it's like independent and
right.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because a couple of people are the ones who've brought the equipment out there doesn't really make them that different. So it's the idea that you're at an event, there's no money's changing hands, there's no
it's not transactions,
there's no ticketing thing. It's completely like, it's like we're offering something to this space, but it's as much anyone else's space as it is ours, and you're welcome to bring your own things to it.
I love that. That's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No, and sometimes it really works. A recent event we had we had a technical fault, and one of the people who was there had been at a photography shoot earlier that day, and so had with him like some extra light fixtures, which we ended up using for the whole event, and it was just like hilarious convergence.
That's what is community.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, and it brings everyone together because, like you said, like if you were paying for that, or like you had to go, get on the guest list and all these things to do that, like you're not going to have those experiences where like that feeling of like the night is saved. Right. Like those amazing moments, those like those things that like stick with you.
Yeah,
and I think it's fantastic.
Should we have a quick break?
We should have a quick break.
Great.
Catch up for the break. Welcome back after the break. Hope you enjoyed that quick little ad.
Yeah.
We probably don't have yet.
Once again, we still don't have any sponsors, so if you want to
So if you want to sponsor us, DM, Instagram,
we're looking at you, Squarespace.
Pretty even so you have a Squarespace.
And we have anyway.
Or a document. Right.
Yeah. We're not fussing. So anyway, so we want to carry on talking. So I've completely just derailed myself there.
Yeah, that's fine.
We want to carry on talking about the events, obviously. So yeah, like what events have you got coming up in the future, and maybe like talk about like some of your favorite events, some events maybe went a bit wrong. Some stories, because I'm sure like you've been in it in a while, but they can't all go amazingly.
No, well, I mean, that's absolutely right. Like, I don't know, it's always the first thing I want to say was that it's just like a massive team effort, right? Like the thing that's usually really amazing about putting on an event is collaborating with other people who are passionate about whatever it is that you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been just been really lucky that with the Earthwork series of events, and kind of subsidiary ones that we've done, the team that I'm part of is like really, really amazing.
Yeah.
And everyone brings different things to the table.
What is Earthwork for like people who don't know?
Sure. I mean, it's basically it's a series of site-specific outdoor dance events. So we bring a bespoke sound system out to an unusual location, set it up in a kind of again like a site responsive way, which makes sense like acoustically, logistically, and then we do the same thing with a custom lighting rig. So for us, Earthwork is all about marrying sound and light to create like memorable, unifying moments, nights, events, whatever you want to call it. And that's a kind of an idea that we've been honing for a couple of years. And working with completely DIY methods to design, lighting looks which sort of diverge from traditional stagecraft club lighting system setups, like avoiding the kind of school disco red, green, blue sort of vibe, which a lot of like small and medium venues just kind of slap on in a day.
It's very much glossed over, I think, the lighting side.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Well, I mean, basically, for me, all of the most memorable musical experiences have been ones where every element of the performance of the event of the show is cohesive in a way, and so that's what we're trying to do. But at the same time, breaking out of the mold of club spaces, and again, like, you know, breaking down the boundaries between audience and organizer, breaking down the boundaries between, you know, you and your mates and the other people who are there. You know, so that's what those events have always been about, and finding, I mean, certainly, you know, some of the most special moments that I've had in the last few years, I've been really lucky to have at some of those events that I've been involved in early on.
Yeah, that's good.
Some of the most memorable moments, I think. And I mean, in particular, we did one in July up at the bunkers in the Purdown bunkers, the ATF bunkers, which was just like really, really incredible. There was this this moonrise, which happened like right behind the DJ. So you're looking out over this the view over
very high up,
all of Bristol, and then like this beautiful like orange full moon rising behind.
Was that planned or just
no? We had an idea.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah,
Just dim the moon to orange.
Oh, right, yeah, literally, yeah. So that was really special, and then you know, we went until the small hours of the morning, and then had the same thing, you know, the sunrise in the other direction.
Wow.
So
yeah,
it was that whole night was just like a total,
I mean that logistically that sounds full on. Like, I know what it takes just even to walk up there.
Right.
Let alone shifting loads of gear. Like, I think, you know, you're really emphasizing this point of like community and group work.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah.
I think
it's
everyone.
It's nothing to do with with me. It's like it's all about what all of us involved come together and do.
No, fantastic. That's such a good mentality, and I think particularly in the gig scene, that's really needed.
Yeah.
And it's not, you know, it's not just like the people who help carry stuff there. It's like the people who help pick up rubbish, the people who like look after someone, you know, who they're like, oh shit, that guy's like, you know, sitting down or like fucking, you know, lying in the grass or whatever. Like, is he okay? Or like,
it's having care and like it's humanity in it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know, it's really it's been a really interesting journey working out like, how do you curate? I mean, you know, the one responsibility that we do have is like, how do you attract a crowd which is going to be able to do that and is going to be able to look after itself? Because you know, when you're working with a public space, essentially you have to like that, you know, the thing that we're also constantly doing within the team is like having conversations around where the responsibilities fall, right? Like, are we, you know, if someone hurts themselves because they, you know, they're up at Purdown, right? There's all these like walls that you can walk around on, and you know, if someone's drunk and falls off and breaks a leg, like, are we liable for that? Like, you know, there are questions around those kinds of logistics, and basically the solution that which we usually arrive to is like, we would do everything, and we are, like, we have welfare officers walking around always at every event, and we have like first aid and food and, you know, like, I don't know, most things that you can think of that you might need, and so you know, we are really involved, like looking after the people who come, but like not because we have to, just because like it's
like,
I don't know, it just makes sense, right?
It's just like the ethos of the entire thing, isn't it? It's the community you care about. Like, everyone is there, is coming and caring and like creating this entire amazing experience together. And like, it's not like an obligation you have, but to help with that ethos, you're going to do that, aren't you? Because you want the people like a safe, comfortable environment to create those feelings of like unity and friendship, like you're saying.
And we found actually that a big part of what influences that feeling in the crowd is the way that you select the lineup of performers, and the sorts of crowds that they attract, basically. And so, you know, like focusing on platforming, like platforming artists who maybe don't often have opportunities to perform, who are from the global majority, who are you know, gender non-conforming artists a lot of the time, giving space for those artists to share their music or share their craft is has generally proven to be like a really big determining factor in the way that's panned out. I think
breath of fresh air, I would argue as well. It feels,
Yeah,
I feel like that's really, really needed.
Yeah.
Particularly, I find that the gig scene can be, again, I'm talking more like standard clubs within Bristol, maybe the wider scene.
Right.
It is quite conforming to like standard, I think, Western tropes a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I think to have that, one, a safe space, two, a diverse cast, and an interesting selection of people that all are there to support and love each other and look after each other. Oh God, it just sounds like a dream.
It does. It really
like
does.
that's exactly what we need.
Yeah,
I think that as young people, particularly in the gig scene, which I've been bloody spiked before.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it
can
can
be quite unforgiving.
It's like, and it's like I thought I was safe. In it was quite a standard club in Bristol, and once that happens to you, you go, hell, I wish I was lucky to have people around me that are close friends. I know people that didn't have that, and I feel like it's a separate point, but I think it's more like we need those spaces, we need that safety net, we need to know that whatever happens, it's going to be all right. You got people that love and care about you, and it's about unity rather than just sort of like sesh word,
right?
Like, getting like angsty or what, like
certainly. Yeah, I mean there are movements to. I mean, first of all, the queer scene in Bristol is really championing a lot of these ideals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Earthwork is a queer team. We all are, and so the way that paying respect to the lineage of queer culture and queer club music,
100%,
is really important. And understanding like what those spaces mean, and the kind of the where what you're doing today sits in that lineage is really important. It's I don't know. Yeah, it's moving away from those ideas of like, oh, the club is a space where like you can do whatever you want, and it's all about letting loose, and it's like and getting fucked up, whatever. There's such a great movement recently towards sober clubbing as well. And like I would highly recommend it to anyone. Find a night that you're really excited about going to, and you think, oh my God, I'm gonna have a great time. I'm gonna take this and this, because this artist's playing, and I really want to see them. Go and do it, and just be sober the whole night. And see what kind of night you have. You'll probably find it really surprising and really rewarding.
Yeah.
I really enjoy doing it.
Is there any particular events that are good for that sort of thing? I know most of the events I've been to in the past, I'm talking when I was younger, so it's definitely different.
Having that now,
having my friends with me was always just like such a safety net, particularly at the real big gigs. Are there any particular venues or particular sort of gigs that are going on at the moment that are great for that sort of, like, if you're going in solo?
Sure. I mean, I would say like I've always had a really great night at Lost Horizon. The team,
Lost Horizon,
the team there are really amazing. And really know how to look after their patrons. And a lot of the programming as well there is like incredibly forward thinking, I think. But I mean also various queer promoters throughout the city. Who comes to mind? Queer Key, who do events at the local club. Quite Queer Key. I was at their end of year party just the other weekend, and that was amazing. The local club is
it's fantastic.
They're or like at least the experiences that I've had there have all been really positive and encouraging. In terms of their awareness of how to keep the space safe and keep people feeling comfortable, safer spaces, those definitely come to mind. And there are other promoters who dart around a bit more, but who make sure they're always working with reputable venues, reputable names. Crotch as well, do a great job. I mean that's been a really big thing for me as well. Is just like all of the lessons that we can learn from queer spaces and from queer promoters.
Yeah, fantastic. That's amazing. I now like to ask you about like any gigs you've had where you're like, okay, this is it's a bit of a shit show. It's been a nightmare. like,
I mean, you don't have to name it.
yeah, you have to name a show, but there's like, if there's any funny details or something you could think of.
I mean, I can laugh about it now, but at the time, the worst, well, one of the worst moments was at this most recent Earthwork event that we did, where half an hour before we were due to start, we had a fatal electrical fault, which meant that the entire lighting rig didn't work for the entire night, which was a huge blow.
I mean, that's, as you were saying, that's one of the biggest episodes of
yeah. So persevering despite that, we had, we were so lucky that all of the DJs we were working with, were really, really caring and really understanding and still played, incredibly amazing sets for the crowd that was there, and everyone there, I think, brought that kind of energy that we were hoping for, and was really supportive and understanding, and I think the event still really worked really well, despite for us as the kind of we did all the lighting design for I mean, we've been planning that event for basically a year since the previous one.
So good.
Which is wild, because it's just, there is all, like, you always take a risk when you're like, oh
Yeah.
this is just like one night and it's all
nothing.
on that. It was tough, but we learned so much from it, and the work that we did to lead up to it isn't wasted at all.
No,
So
I agree. And the night was still good.
yeah.
I mean, like, that's a pretty amazing way to end it. When half an hour
Right.
before. You think it's
But
not
it's
crisis
certainly taken having some time since it to appreciate that, because at the time,
Oh yeah, you
guys, it's completely out of the situation.
But I think again, you've set yourself up to succeed again there. Like you were saying about the sound system, that people, that is like so integral with the lights. It creates this amazing environment. But as you said, I love the idea of valuing audiences way more and putting them on, like, everyone's equal in that sense.
Right.
And despite as you say, a fatal error in the lights, you still have an amazing crowd, amazing artists.
Yeah, exactly.
And whatever happens, it still works.
Exactly.
Like,
Once all of those things are in motion, you kind of, you can be pretty sure, like, okay, actually it probably will be a really great time.
Yeah.
So that's a nice kind of thing to fall back on.
Yeah, fantastic.
So yeah.
That is
That's
terrifying.
And you're I mean, whatever it is, trekking out to Podell was fine, man. That was nothing compared to being out where we do earthwork. Like, the getting equipment out there is just like, anyone who's been out there knows it's
like DV.
yeah. It's like DV, but you're carrying, like, 2 like giant bass scoops on your back.
Food,
Right.
I think I'd prefer that, to be honest.
Yeah, I think that's
So moving on, is there any sort of projects musically or events that are coming up that you want to talk about?
Sure. So I mean, recently I've started work on a new community radio station.
Cool.
Which will be launching early next year. And working on that with a friend of mine, and trying to create a new station in Bristol, which is representing people from across the dance music diaspora, and is a really approachable station. So platforming smaller artists who maybe don't have experience in broadcasting, don't have experience maybe even in getting booked or playing out, and trying to give them a platform, as well as still lifting up kind of more medium-sized artists who are really doing great work and pushing the scene forward. That's the aim at the moment. And I've just been kind of laying down the groundwork for that, basically. And I'll announce it soon, I think. With my friend, and we're looking to launch mid-January.
Amazing. Well, send it our way, because we'll
definitely
promote it.
because
I'd be really excited to listen to that.
I'll do.
Yeah, for sure.
Man. Yeah, it's going to be called Workshop Radio.
Workshop Radio.
That's cool.
Workshop Radio.
Workshop Radio.
Broadcasting from a workshop.
Yeah, nice.
2 days a week.
That's it.
Cool. That's amazing.
So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of moving away, or not away, but like from talking about events from your experiences. I think like coming to Bristol, like my experience was of like this kind of EDM. I don't know, like hallowed place. Like coming from like a village in Devon,
Right.
and I kind of realized that when I came up here, like there is like so much variety and lots of stuff to listen to, but a lot of the most frequented places that you go to, often for drum and bass in particular, which is like what my EDM experience was prior to coming here, is sometimes can be like quite like homogenized and like just someone just blasting a folk horn out of nowhere, and you're like, okay, this is not Makichi or someone.
It's your Andy C's.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
they get booked pretty much every month.
Yeah, and
at most gigs.
Yeah, exactly.
There's nothing wrong.
There's nothing wrong.
If you
exactly.
like it.
But then also like alongside like that more like commercialization and like homogenization, that some like really like you said about Mars, like some real institutes are falling apart at the wayside because it's like sometimes like more like bottom line driven rather than experience driven.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Right. I think that effect is happening, outside of just the drum and bass.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I guess I don't know. Maybe it feels more noticeable there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I've listened to a lot of drum and bass in my time, but I'm not at a lot of drum and bass.
No, sorry. Yeah, that's just my experience.
But I think the commercialization of a clubbing experience is there's definitely a conversation to be had there. I've found it's like, the antidote to that is like supporting small promoters.
Yeah,
and
100%.
If your friend of a friend is doing an event at a place you've never heard of, go along and see what it's like, and chat to someone, or go and I don't know, go to an event that you've never heard of, and chat to someone
For sure.
Because there will always be those those like more household namey clubs or promoters or artists who are getting booked more regularly, who you're seeing, and that's there's obviously there's a place for that, but I think for me the like not solution, but certainly just like the opposing side of that phenomenon you're describing is like supporting smaller clubs and smaller promoters and places which are trying to make changes in the scene, and who are pinning their morals to their door and saying this is what we stand for as a place, and if you like that, come on it. There's 395 studios who've opened up out underneath the Jam Jar. They're like in some ways a pretty radical space, right? The way that they're set up is is incredibly welcoming, incredibly approachable. Like as in terms of they'll just in terms of what kind of things they're willing to put on and who they're willing to work with. They're trying to they're just trying to shake things up and do it differently, and the guys who are running it are like in some ways are really like have a really fresh ethos,
Fantastic.
which like maybe I don't know, maybe more experienced promoters or venue owners might see as naive, but I to me it's really exciting.
I totally agree.
And other venues that are trying to do that kind of thing, I think are really great. I've always loved working at Dare Shack as well. Their setup is so great. It's really for for the space that you get, for the sound system that you get, and the support that you get. It's a very affordable venue, and like the sorts of programming that they do, I think again is like really is pretty thoughtful.
100%.
Wicked. Right, we're almost coming to the end of our time here. So unfortunately, because
I would chat for hours.
Genuinely hours. You're such a good orator, honestly. But final question we have is, what is it? So, music, obviously. What is the feeling or like motivation that you have when you wake up? It's like, I want to do music. What makes you want to do it? Like in your bones or whatever. What's
the drive?
Yeah. Very existential question. But
No. I mean, for me,
right.
I guess it's interesting, right? Like as I've developed as an artist over the last sort of, you know, 5 years, my philosophy around my own musical output has really developed, and like the way, like the reason that I'm creating at all is something that changes quite a lot, I think. And so it's about trying to find, you know, what's the thread that connects up, you know, okay, well, one day I want to make something like this, or one day I want to do this with these people or with these people, or I want to take part in this project, or I want to make this thing on my own, and trying to reflect on creative choices and decisions that you make, and summon a sort of a sense of creative identity throughout that, I think has felt, you know, recently like a much more important practice to me to be like actively engaging in, and it feels like the more I do of that, the closer I get to answering that question.
Yeah.
But like, but it's not something that I ask myself every day. Perhaps I should be.
Sometimes it's better not to, because then you're like, oh god, do I need to have like a reason and all this stuff? And sometimes sometimes it becomes a bit of a thing that gets like a bit rational. Sometimes it's a perspective.
It is a good question. I mean, you know, but like what I can definitely say is like fundamentally, music for me is like a social thing, right? Like it's a form of communication, and like you're either communicating as an artist to an audience member, or you're sharing in the experience of a particular piece of art with someone. And it's I don't know, God, it's like so general. It's a way of like connecting with other people. And like making, creating in a way that is like that sort of taps into some of the most like powerful like social experiences that I've had throughout my life. That's what I'm always trying to get back to, is like, you know, what are the moments that I feel really brought me closer to the people around me, and how do I create art that does the same thing? I think
That's amazing. Pretty good, Matt.
Well, thank you so much.
Sweet, yeah.
Really appreciate it.
It's been so nice.
Is there anything you quickly like to plug, or put all your plugs in the description?
I don't know. I've just got an Instagram now for my production and DJing.
Nice.
At stupid.pitch, where I'll be putting mixes and you know, snippets of tunes and stuff on there.
Amazing.
Awesome. Got some new music coming out in the new year, which should be exciting.
Well,
Run it up, guys. We'll
let the people know.
We'll promote.
Exactly. Hope you enjoy, guys. If you did enjoy, please give it a like, give it a follow, share it to your mate, your mum, your dad, your dog.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Cheers.
So.
Thank you, Otto.
Thanks for having me.
Sweet. In a bit.
Bye.